everyone, my name is Marie Chang. Usually I will do these videos and you don't really see my face for some pretty obvious reasons because I am recording this in Zoom with this background, and sometimes it works and it sometimes doesn't. But today I wanted to show you step by step my process of learning a new art style, and especially in celebration of season 4 of Big Mouth that comes out today, I thought it would be fun to kind of slow down some of the steps and just walk you through every single moment of my process. I hope it's helpful. And thanks again for watching.
I will be drawing this on my iPad digitally, but you can recreate the same process on paper. I would probably do this on several layers of different paper, preferably something that's a little thinner so you can see through it if you want to mimic, having digital layers. But you can also just open up your sketchbook and, draw multiple different drawings until you are happy with a version of it. So for step 1, I'm going to start off by doing a super, super rough drawing. Usually before I do this, I will trace around the existing characters that I can find. As you can see here, I've pulled a bunch of research reference drawings, mostly Ali Wong's character, because she's probably the one that looks most like me in real life. And so when I'm drawing a character that's supposed to be me in that show style, I just want to make sure that I look like the other characters who actually have the same features I do. And again, like I've mentioned before, it's always super exciting when there's an Asian character to reference. So I'm drawing this, what looks to be right now quite hideous and really, really rough sketch, but all of my drawings start this way. I think that I am going to draw myself as a basketball player, which is what I wanted to be when I was in middle school. It doesn't make any sense because I am all of 5'4" and not athletic, and I'm flat-footed and I have duck feet. But that's what I wanted when I was in 7th grade, so we're just gonna go with that. I'm gonna draw myself carrying that little basketball. I like drawing characters holding a prop because it gives the hands something to do. Even in acting or in performance, it's just so much easier when you have a prop and you're not just like, I don't know, doing whatever with your arms. So now that I have that rough pose down, I am ready to go in and start doing the loose line art. This is still really, really rough. Honestly, this line art could still classify as a sketch at this rate, but because I've never drawn in the big mouth art style before, I am just gonna, give myself a break and understand that even if some of these drawings are really ugly looking right now, it's okay. I know some of these lines look incredibly confusing and wild, but as long as you can distinguish what the next layer of your drawing needs to be, that's what matters. So at this point, I got a little stuck and I wasn't really sure what the next thing I felt confident drawing, and I ended up going with my ponytail. And I think that's something that I try to keep in mind whenever I'm stuck on like a piece of a drawing. I'll just try to do the next thing that I'm certain I can draw. So I was like, I can draw a ponytail, but I was really thrown off by those hands, and hands are notoriously difficult to draw, especially on this show where they're so small and tiny and they're posed in a very specific way. So, in my attempts to match that, I just had to go back and do a couple more studies and references before I went and finished it on this particular drawing. At this point, when I have this rough drawing, I start comparing the proportions to the reference source. And what I realized is that my arms were way too long compared to some of the characters in the show. So I just was able to use the transform tool and readjust the proportions. Now I'm going to go through and draw my glasses in. I always wore glasses growing up. It was terrible for sports, especially basketball. They would always get knocked off, or they would fog up when I was running, and they were just never useful. But I had glasses, so I gotta stick to the source material. So now I'm just going to go through and add some detail to the legs. Got to really fill out those cankles I've got going on there. And I'm just going to try to get some of the shape of the shoe down. I'm adding some socks. And I'm also going to turn off the layer underneath just to have a little more clarity on where I'm at with this drawing. If you're drawing on traditional paper, this might be a good time to either start a fresh sketch or use a fresh piece of paper. And I also added a Live Strong bracelet. I don't know if anyone else remembers those, but those were really, really popular when I was in middle school, and I remember always wearing one. So had to throw that in there for the authenticity. Yeah, and so now I'm just gonna go back and make some really fine-tuned changes before I do my final clean line art. I'm adjusting my nose a little bit. I have more of like a flatter button nose, and I just wanted my character to reflect that. So that was something that I made some minor adjustments to. I also wanted to make sure that I just had the best foundation possible going into the clean line art. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure that I can find the right type of pen to get the same look. So you saw me earlier go through and just kind of check it against the existing character designs to make sure that they were the same width and, a similar texture. So I think I'm pretty happy with this one. You'll notice that it kind of bleeds like an ink pen would, and while I really like that because it reminds me of drawing on paper, it's not necessarily ideal for doing like a digital version of a drawing like this, especially if you're trying to match the style of the show. So that's something to keep in mind. But I was pretty happy with this pen for the existing drawing, and now I'm just struggling to get my eyes looking right. It usually takes me a couple different tries just to get a line that I'm happy with, and I think that sometimes taking that time is totally worth it. I'm going to do those gross little teeth that I've got going on there now, and yeah, just drawn all those little braces to really nail home how cute I was as an awkward middle schooler. As I'm going through and doing these lines, I just want to keep in mind that anytime I'm doing these longer, smooth lines, to try to do them all in one motion instead of breaking them up, because you'll get a much nicer looking, cleaner line. I'll always do the thing where I invert the drawing to see if there's any weird spots. When I did that this time, nothing really stood out, so I was just able to continue. But you can see here how when I'm trying to fix and merge two lines, it just doesn't look as clean as if I had done it in one fell swoop. So here I'm giving myself really bushy eyebrows. It's actually really disturbing. But it's I guess it's accurate. I ended up just going back with smooth eyebrows because honestly those bushy eyebrows were just so unsettling that I'm certain no one would want to look at me. So this is me editorializing how pleasant looking my eyebrows would have been shaped in middle school, but at least it's tolerable. So now I'm going to go through and draw that super attractive PE uniform that we all had to wear. I'm going to go and just add these little cuffs and try to make it smooth enough in this drawing. I don't know if smooth is the right word, but I want to make it look nice and clean without compromising the idea that in the show a lot of the lines are sometimes not super symmetric, and the items can look a little bit more like a little rough around the edges, which I really like and I think fits the show so well. It's a show about the time in life where you feel the most rough around the edges, and I love that it's really accurate in its design to that feeling. So these hands are really tough to draw. I finally got a version of them that I'm kind of happy with. There's a lot of tutorials on how to draw hands that you can take a look at, but when in doubt, just combine a couple of the fingers together and stick one of them separately, and usually that gives you a pleasant looking shape in theory. So now I'm on the final parts of this clean line. I'm just gonna go through and draw my little socks and my shoes. Sometimes when I'm doing clean line, I'll make some design changes and just adjust as I go. In this case, I felt like it would look a little better with laces and a traditional kind of, is it the shoe tongue? I don't know what the word for it is. But yeah, I just thought that looked a little better. And I'm also going to resize little bits and pieces that I think feel like they're either misproportioned or just don't feel like the show. And I also wanted to go through and just clean up some of the lines. So now I'm going to do the bane of my existence, another hand holding a ball, which is just, ugh. And it's there's never too much of a pleasant way to go through this process. You just draw and then you get mad at yourself for not being able to get it right the first time, and then you make adjustments. If you are doing this on paper using pencil, I hope you're using pencil. If you're using pen, I applaud your confidence. And if you're using pencil, just know that it's always okay to erase, because that is like 50% of what I've been doing when I've been trying to draw my hand. So I'm going to add some marks to indicate that it's a basketball, and just take a little look at this and see if I like the design as is. Once I decided to do the glasses, I realized that I had to make some adjustments with how I wanted to draw the eyes as well. I know that I always talk about trying to do these big lines in one fell swoop, but spheres and any kind of circular imagery to me is always just a challenge. You could use any existing tools that would give you that circle, but I kind of like trying it freehand. It looks a little less mechanical and stiff, so I'm just going to do it this way and hope that it looks believable at some point and that people can tell these are glasses I'm wearing, hopefully. As I was going through this process, I noticed that the mouth could use a little tweaking. I just felt like this was a better reflection of what I actually look like in real life, or what I looked like at that time. So I made that change, and then now I'm going to try to tackle that pesky eyeglass piece that's left over. It's a little tough to try to fit it in there. I want to really emphasize how massive my glasses were in middle school, but also I didn't want to have any tangents, and I didn't want it to overlap with my mouth or my eye. So it's just a little tricky to get the proportions correct on this. Not to mention, I'm terrible at drawing these kinds of shapes. So I was just slowly chipping away at getting this part of my glasses to look like something worth calling clean line art. Now that I have the clean line art finished, I'm going to turn off the rough sketch underneath and just try to clean up some of these weird spots where like there was clearly more pressure on my stylus, so it kind of picked up more ink digitally. You won't have this issue if you do it by hand, or if you do have this issue, you won't be able to clean it up this way anyways. But this is just something that I like to do when I'm drawing digitally. It makes it look a little more polished, especially when you zoom out and you don't really notice those little blips. So yeah, just gonna go through and make all those little adjustments. Now, as I was doing this and kind of looking at the line art, I realized that I almost look way too much like Ali Wong's design, like the hair is too similar. And so after getting some feedback, I decided to change that hair shape and make it closer to what my hair actually looks like in the photo reference. So, always feel free to make these changes even after you've already done the line art. It's never too late to change your drawing if you feel like there's something that you see that can make it better or make it more authentic looking, or just something that you're happier with. I decided to add a little, messy string of hair off of my face because that's exactly what I had in middle school. And I just changed the shape a little bit so that it kind of separates my design from Ali Wong's character and also retains the look that I was going for in terms of me appearing like a character in the show. So as I take far too long to draw this strand of hair, I'm just going to keep an eye out to make sure that the lines are consistent throughout and that I'm still retaining the volume and the kind of the 3D shape of my head. So I want to make sure that I don't end up looking like I have a weird dent in my skull or something, and that it feels like I could be a dimensional character in this world. I'm going to invert the drawing and just take a look at any areas that feel off to me. That leg was a little bit skewed too far to one side and it made me feel unbalanced. So after making that change, I think I'm pretty happy with this. And I think that this is going to be the final clean line art. So now I am ready to start the color. Before I do that, I'm just going to do a little housekeeping. If you are doing this digitally, I just like to put all of my line art onto one little group in terms of the layers. You can keep the individual layers separately, but just grouping them kind of cleans things up for the coloring. So now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and just pick the colors that I think would fit my character. I have really, really dark brown hair, and there are little bits of it that are lighter than others, but for the sake of this design, I think it makes more sense just to pretend that my hair is all one color. I chose this dark brown color, hoping that it might blend with the other tones in this design once it's complete, but honestly, you never really know. And there's also, different preferences as to how people choose to color in this process. I prefer just to go within the lines. I actually find it really therapeutic to do it this way. I know other people will use a mask, or they will do this first layer a little messy, and then as they add layers on top, then they will draw and color within the lines, because it doesn't matter since you don't see the layer underneath. But I kind of like to do it this way. It's a weird thing. I just find it very satisfying. Apparently, though, not with the lips on this drawing, because I did not care about the lines there. But for everything else, I just like to go in this process. And I also like to go by the individual color. So I don't like to jump around. That actually drives me nuts. I like doing it this way for sure. And, if you find yourself not sure what your workflow would be, just try a bunch of different processes out and see what is best for you. You might like one way or the other more, and ultimately it's just whatever gets you motivated to finish the drawing. I'm actually not super stoked about this current skin tone, and I think I will end up changing it later, but sometimes you just need to see what it looks like compared to the other colors on your design. So I decided to go and just fill in that basketball orange, because I know it would be that, and do the eyebrows, and just continue on and at least have some momentum in my work, so that the parts that I'm unhappy with, I can revisit with fresh eyes and with the context of the rest of my piece. So I'm going to color in the lips. I'll give them like a soft pink color. Hopefully this makes them stand out just enough. And I think for my uniform, I'm going to have to stay true to the original and give myself a navy blue kind of look. And I just wanted to experiment and see what might look best. So I'm going to just have my shorts match. From what I remember of middle school, we totally had matching shorts with the little cuffs on our PE shirts. But I think also for animation, it's very fitting. I chose this color because I thought that it would potentially match, but as I'm coloring this in, I learned to really hate it. This gold color just like really looked bizarre next to that skin tone, and the more that I'm looking at this, even now doing voiceover, the more that I'm just like, ugh. So yeah, I quickly changed that to gray because it just fit a lot better, and I in fact chose a gray tone that was, I think, closer to a bluish gray so that it would match the cuffs. And for my braces, they were a lovely purple color. Now I'm going to do the eyes, and looking at their eyes, they actually have a lot of dimension in their eyes, and there's multiple layers to give you that look that they're, there's some gloss in that eye. They have some life to them. So I'm just going to copy what I see in that drawing and mimic it and give myself some brown eyes. So now I just really have to color in the socks and shoes. I could not really decide on a color for the socks, so I'm going to try this like light sky blue grayish color and just see if it goes with the rest of the outfit. And then, do the standard PE sneaker and see if I can come up with something that will fit the rest of this outfit and also look like it could be in the show. Sometimes you got to play around with a bunch of different options before you settle on something that feels and looks right to you. But honestly, this should be the fun part, and you're just kind of figuring out what works. I decided to try this creamier yellow color, and because I used the fill bucket tool in Fresco, I just had to go over it and clean up some of those pixels that were still the previous color. But yeah, it really depends based off your program and also whether you're doing this digitally or traditionally. But this is kind of the phase where you just look at what you got and you see if you're happy with it. And after taking a look at it, I think that I'm actually really happy with this design. So this is the final version of me as a character in the TV show Big Mouth. This is a side-by-side comparison of the photo that inspired this drawing, me playing basketball terribly, and the final design. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that these steps were clear and helpful to you no matter what medium you're using to draw. And I hope that no matter what, you just keep drawing. Thank you again for watching. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next video.